Hey gang, D. Tidwell, coach of Enduro Mountain Bike Training, EnduroMTBTraining.com. Here to talk about the rip row and the difference between the squat and the deadlift. Okay, more specifically the hip hinge. All right, so squatting and hip hinge today for the average person is diminished and or changed. There's a lot of competition going on. Mostly because of generalized tightness of the hip socket or joint, that's a mobility issue, and or flexibility as it relates to muscle issue or issues. The reason or main reason for most of you watching is the seated workplace, because we sit in this day with in this position all day with poor posture. Okay, the body then becomes tight and rigid in that particular position because it's considered repetitive stress, just like a grocery clerk, for example, turning to the same side all day, every day is considered repetitive stress. The seated work position, sitting to drive in your car to go to work, sitting most of the day at work, sitting to drive to go home, and then sitting on the couch to watch TV, that's usually how most people's lives are, no matter what you do. Okay, so just know that most people, and here in my clinic, in my screening evaluations, physical evaluations, I see that all the time. Compromised hip, knee, and mostly pelvis, hip hinge, core weakness, all of that is affected. Poor posture from a rounded thorax position, because we do this with a forward hip carriage. It's very typical. This position, this posture is very normal in today's society. And I'm, as a practitioner, always trying to get people to have this as their normal athletic kind of movement position to go from, or posture is another way to look at it. So right now, squat-wise, here's what you want to be able to do as a squat. You basically want to be able to go shoulders width. We'll do it with arms straight out. You want to be able to have good knee tracking over your second toes, not falling inward or going excessively outward. You want to be able to keep your chest up, and then you'll see it better from this position. Starting from the ground up, you want to be able to have good dorsiflexion at the ankle. Dorsiflexion simply means I'm pulling my toes up to my shins, and or I'm going forward with my tib fib over my ankle foot. So I have to have a good ankle mobility in order to start my squat where my knees are going forward. Now, my knees can go past my toes in a squat. It's not a problem as long as my heels stay down and there's pressure in it. As soon as we go here, that's the problem. Okay, so knees go forward, my hip begins to drop. This is a hip hinge right here, a good hip hinge in my squat. My chest stays up, and I come down into this position, and then I come back up. So what we see with squat move compromising is an inability to use their dorsiflexion, let's say. So what happens is knees can only go this far, and so now I have to compensate by letting my upper body go forward, and this is what my squat looks like simply because I can't get good dorsiflexion out of my ankles. So if I had good dorsiflexion out of my ankles, there goes my butt, and I'm in proper position, right? So working on the soft tissue of your lower leg is very important, okay? Now, that's kind of your squat, your ability to squat. The hip hinge, which would be a Romanian style deadlift as it relates to an exercise move in the gym, which is this move here. You can have bars or dumbbell where you're just pushing your hip back to counterbalance. So the mass of my butt is going backwards to counterbalance the mass of my upper body going forward. That's what really defines a good hip hinge. Because if I go this way, then I fall forward, right? That's because I tipped over without counterbalancing with my butt, rear end, posterior leg, by going backwards and sitting into it. One thing you can do is if you put your fingers on your hip bones right here, and then hinge forward, what you're gonna feel is those hip bones are going closer, drawing closer to your femurs, like such. So right now, my fingers are now stuck between my hip bone and my femurs. If I do this wrongly, my hip bones literally didn't move. I just rounded my spine, okay? So a good hip hinge pattern is to have good neutral foot position. My knees go soft and they actually don't move. If you watch my lower leg, when I do a hip hinge or a Romanian deadlift, my knees, my shins, excuse me, stay vertical, but they naturally bend because this is going backwards and this is going forward. That's a good hip hinge. Okay? Now, you bring in the rip row, and that's important because if we go toes in the middle, and we go into a squat, we can do the squat very well. Okay? All we're doing here, we're reinforcing a good squat pattern, okay, up and down essentially, while having some kind of push element and pull element, which, you know, of course, with the rip row makes this very unique because I can dial up my tension. I can dial up my tension from a pulse perspective, so my pull is very hard and my push is very easy, or my push is easy and my pull is hard. Okay, so you can go back and forth between the two, or you can just have both obviously being very easy or very hard. Now in the beginning, when you're starting to learn how to do this and you're teaching yourself how to properly squat, for example, you want to do just lightweight and really do this in front of a mirror so that you can see that you have good form in your squat move, like such, okay? Now, as it relates to a hip hinge, that's when, for example, we go back to squat, for example. Squat, I'm going to squat when I want to pick something up, like my child, or something heavy. I'm squatting to pick it up. That actually would be a deadlift move, okay? I'm going to hip hinge or Romanian style deadlift if I'm going to pick something up that's lighter and not so heavy, okay? So if I go hip hinge on rip row, I'm actually counterbalancing and pushing forward, and you can tell my range is greater now in my arms and my lever arms. So when I push, I'm further out, and then I'm pulling also from that position, getting more of the hip hinge thrust, activating more of my glutes, whereas a quad is more lower leg, excuse me, when the squat is more lower leg and squat, quad, excuse me, geez. And then I'm back up, whereas hip hinge is much more glute dominant, lat driven. Remember, my lat's attached on my front of my arm, they run down, that's my lat, attaches right to the top of my hip, and actually the fibers go into and run through my glutes, okay? So this is very much glute driven, if you want that good functioning booty like we all do, and this is more kind of leg dominant with the squat, okay? So, why push-pull? First, we don't have to go back and forth between machines, right? So my cable machine, I can only do a pull by itself on my cable machine, or I can do a push by itself on my cable machine. So I'm not having to go from machine to machine, let's say, switching out weights, adding, you know, plates or changing dumbbells or whatever. I'm here, I'm at home. I'm at home in my functional hip hinge or squat pattern, getting a good push-pull upper body move all at the same time. I can go from a good squat pattern with a limited range upper body to full-on hip hinge, big range upper body. Right? All the while, we are maintaining our ability to squat and hip hinge or bend, which are two primary functions that we were designed to do as human beings, squatting and bending, all right? So, using your rip row can help you be a better squatter. It can help you be a stronger squatter, and obviously deadlifter, for example. Two primary things that everybody needs. It doesn't matter what age you are. You still need to be good at those two things. And in fact, I would argue, if you look at Asian cultures, so much of the elder generation still sit here like this, right? See if you can try it. See if you can do it right now. This is something that is very powerful to be able to do from a longevity standpoint of movement and function. And the rip row helps do that. So, talked a lot about the squat and the hip hinge. I hope that was helpful to understand what the difference is between the two, and how the rip row as one piece of equipment can help you be better at both of those things no matter your sports. But since we like mountain biking, I love this as a tool for my mountain bikers, but any athlete's going to benefit, okay? So go try some of those things that we worked on and talked about, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Sorry for the bad light, Limo.